Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a very basic tutorial on Unity and how to make a very simple game in Unity. So what you're going to need for this is kind of a computer that can obviously run Unity and VS Code. So make sure to check your computer's requirements. I can do that. You're going to need to download Unity Hub, and you're going to have to download Visual Studio Code, which is used for kind of the coding process that is involved in making any type of game. So once you download Unity Hub and you're on the screen, you can want to click New Project. And you can select all different kinds of projects to make, but for today, for this tutorial, just click 3D built-in render pipeline, name your project, and then click Create Project. So I already have the project kind of set up, so once you open your project, you should see something like this. Now ignore these two folders down here called Materials and Scripts. You shouldn't have those yet. I'm going to teach you later how to make those and what we have to do with those. But up here, you should kind of see just this. So you should have two things. You should have a main camera and directional light. So with the main camera, essentially this, well, before we get into that, you can use kind of right click on your mouse to look around. You can zoom in with your scroll wheel, and you can kind of use the arrows to move around in this space, in this 3D space. So yeah, again, back to the main camera. What that basically is once you run your game, your player is going to look through this camera. You can kind of see a little sample down here of what they're going to see. And this is the directional light. This is just the lighting that's going to be in your game. So yeah, basically, what we're going to do here is we're going to make a plane, and we're going to create kind of a ball and drop it on that plane. And I'm going to teach you how you can code this game so that when the user inputs arrow keys, that the ball kind of moves around on the plane. So yeah, the first thing you want to do is go here to what's called the hierarchy. Right click here, create 3D object, and then just click plane. So you can kind of mess with a lot of stuff here. Let's just make the position of the plane 0, 0, 0, kind of center of the plane at the origin point. You can change the width and the length of the plane, but you cannot change the height of it because it's a plane, you know. So there's a lot of stuff here. Same thing with the camera and the directional light. We don't really have to worry about all this stuff for now, but what the mesh renderer does is it basically allows you to see the plane. So that it, and the collider. What the collider does is it basically makes it so that other things can't phase through the plane. Like if you dropped a ball in it, for example, it wouldn't like just fall through the plane. But when you create these things, they should just come with the plane, so you don't have to worry about them unless you're kind of altering them for some other purpose later down the line. But for today's game, you don't really have to do that. So next, you want to go to right click again in the hierarchy, just click go to 3D object again, create a sphere. So let's make the position of the sphere 0, 0, 0 again. But actually, instead of making the y 0, let's make it 1, so it's just floating a little bit above the plane. So you might be thinking it's kind of ugly to look at. It's kind of hard to see the ball on the plane, you know. So to make it simpler, or just to make it better overall, we're going to add colors. But before we talk about that, I'm going to talk about project management, or an organization, actually. So even though this is a very simple project, you should get into the habit of making folders for things so things don't get lost and mixed up, because in more complex games later down the line, you really are going to get confused if you don't make folders, and it's just going to make everything way faster and way easier. So the way you do that is right click down here and just create a folder. So you want to create a materials folder, and what materials essentially are colors. So these are preset colors that I've already made. So the way you do that is you want to right click here, you want to go to create, and you want to click material. Let's just go with a green color. You want to click on this, and then you want to go here, and you just want to mess with the color wheel and kind of make a green color. So let's just put black on the plane. You can just drag it on simply, and that's all you have to do. It's a very simple process. And let's just drag green onto the sphere. So now we kind of have color. It's easier to distinguish things. It just looks a little better. So the next thing we want to do is go to the sphere, and the sphere also has a collider, so it doesn't fall through the plane, and it has a mesh render so you can see it. But we want to add what's called a rigid body. So what a rigid body essentially does is it adds Unity's pre-built physics engine onto whatever you add it to. So now our ball has a mass, it has drag, it has gravity, stuff like that. So this is really important, and a lot of times people forget this stuff, but just make sure to always remember to do this if you're making anything that requires this, anything that should have a physics engine on it. So the next thing you want to do is create a scripts folder, and in the scripts folder you want to right click and click create C# script, and just name it move. So this is kind of where our coding process comes into this. So once you right click move, this stuff I added, and this whole big chunk of code I added, so that don't worry if none of that's there, it shouldn't be there. So let's go over the pre-built methods that you probably see right now. So you're probably going to see a start method, which basically what this does is whatever code you put in this chunk, in these brackets, whatever code you put there, it's only going to happen at the start of your game once you run it initially. And all this stuff, this is going to happen every single frame. In update, all this stuff is going to happen every single frame of your game. So it's important to put this here, because what this is basically checking if the user is inputting right arrow, then you want to transform the position. You want to change the position of your ball, and you want to move it right times speed times delta time. So you need times delta time all the time. And what speed is it's just a variable I made up here. What a variable does is it essentially stores some kind of number, and I'm multiplying the force that I move my object in by the speed, whatever speed I've set up here. So yeah, the reason it's important to have all this code in the update is because the code's constantly checking if the user is inputting any key to move the player or something like that. If you put it in start, it would only check at the very beginning, but we all have to be constantly checking throughout the entire game's lifespan if the user is inputting a key to kind of move the ball or do anything else. So yeah, again, it's just asking if the user inputs right arrow, make it go right, left arrow left, up arrow forward, and down arrow back. If you prefer WSD, you can just kind of change that here. Yeah, you just do D. But for now, I'm just going to keep it the arrows. And just make sure to save. Always save. What serialized field here does is, let's go back to the project for a second. So anything that's underneath serialized field and not in these methods, what it essentially does is it allows you to change that variable that's underneath serialized field in Unity Hub itself instead of having to go back to the code and change it. So let me show you. So if we put our move script on sphere, which we have to do, you can either add component and just search a move, or you can just drag it on there. Once we do that, since I put speed under serialized field, we can change the speed here. We can kind of just change it to whatever we need. I'm going to keep it 2 for now, but this is useful because you can change it in the Unity Hub rather than going back to the code and changing the speed and having to save it. But this way, it just does it in the Unity Hub, which is very useful. So now that we've applied move and a rigid body onto our ball, our game should work. So you want to hit play up here and kind of wait for it to finish doing its thing. And once that happens, you notice how the ball fell? That's because we added the rigid body on it. We added gravity on it. So now if you hit your arrow keys, the ball should be able to move around. So yeah, that was kind of a very, very basic tutorial on how to make a very simple game. It can just kind of serve as your introduction to Unity if you don't know much about it. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you.